Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Our next speaker is the speaker for this session 2. We have in total 5 sessions. 3 will be in the afternoon. Dr. Mohammed Rafiq Khan bin Abdul Rahman is the Chief Executive Officer of Munich Re Retail Company and has been with Munich Re since 2008. His initial background was not in finance, but in medical services. And around 13 years ago, he joined the Malaysian insurance industry. He is currently the Chief Executive Officer at Singapore. Dr. Rafiq has strong passion for community services. He's an active community member and supports various community-related functions in their management. He sits on boards of several NGOs and is currently the president of Victims Malaysia, an organization that champions the cause of victims of abandoned houses. He sits on several other boards and is advisor and board member in many other NGOs. In 2009, he was honored by the newspaper The New Straits Times as one of the heroes 2008 for his contribution to the community during the landslide tragedy in Bukit Antarabangsa, Malaysia. Please welcome Dr. Rafiq.
Assalamualaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Since we are ready, so I think I should have more than 45 minutes. This is an interesting topic. And it's a passion for us at Moving Association Malaysia. Yeah. So I will try to give an overview of what is the current state of affairs, as well as what I think should be the solution in moving forward. Yeah. This is what we're going to talk about. We'll touch on some of the hard facts, the reality of life in Malaysia, the current law, and some ideas on how to move forward before I close the session. I think you see these pictures all the time in the papers. These pictures are becoming quite a norm nowadays in the papers, and people raise their voices and all that, and then everything mellows down again. Right? Now, if you want to go to the Ministry of Housing website, they have a specific definition for problematic projects, which is called delay, sick, and abandoned. For delay, it is on the basis of progress of the project. I think I don't have to go into the detail of it, but enough to say there are 3 categories of definition. Why I'm emphasizing this, I'm coming back to this at a later stage on why there is a need to understand where we are today. An abandoned project has got its own set of definition. I would like to highlight to you the one you read, project that is not completed within or outside the SPA, and no significant activity at the construction site for 6 consecutive months. So that is what Ministry of Housing says. It's taken from their website. Now, if we look at the abandoned or problematic projects in Malaysia, but if you look at the statistics, compared between 2010 and 2012, there has been some reduction in the numbers of problematic, delayed, and abandoned projects in Malaysia. There's no denying there is some improvement, but we need to understand why it improved and the role played by the purchasers themselves, as well as the role played by various parties in improving the statistics. If you look, a lot of people like to look at the number of projects. I don't like to focus on projects. I don't like to focus on buildings, because building has no life. the affected person is the person, the house buyer. So we should focus on the house buyers. If you look, as of September 2012, there are almost 50,000 people affected, 50,000 families. And these 50,000 families are impacted from economic perspective that many of them has destroyed, their lives has been destroyed. Yeah? And I must say that destruction of family economies is a major thing caused by road developers and contributed by the banks. Sorry. Yeah? We must accept the fact. Prof has presented an example of how the banks actually played their role. Yeah? But there are many other roles that the banks could have played a better part in preventing abandoned houses, but that did not happen. If you look at those data just now, and if you go to the website of Ministry of Housing, you can see that they've got a list of all these problematic projects, sick projects, and abandoned projects, all in the website. Interestingly to see, the oldest sick project and still labeled as sick is Taman Lima Emas since 1987. How can you say a project is still sick? Since 1987, you know. Oldest delayed project is 2010. How can one say that is delayed for so long? Clearly, what's happening is, there is statistical creativity here. The government are very concerned about labeling projects as abandoned. They don't want to show on their website that the number of abandoned projects are very high. Yeah? So they play down to the statistic by dividing them into sick, delayed, and abandoned. Yeah? So, but if I were to apply the abandoned project definition by the Ministry of Housing to those lists that is there in the Ministry of Housing website, this is what I get. Yeah? 316 projects are abandoned today. Yeah? 49,000 house buyers are affected. 60,000 houses are delayed. And you see, there are significant variance in what the ministry defined, what the ministry put on the website, yeah, and what is the reality on ground. And I think first thing to do is, first step to move forward is to take facts as it is and accept the reality, you know, and not by doing this kind of statistical creativity. If we don't accept that it's a problem and try to be creative with the problem, we will never solve the problem. In conclusion, as I mentioned, KPKT website did not provide true information. Many more unlicensed and unreported projects are not included in the statistics. To the question that is highlighted earlier, there should not be any unlicensed developers in Malaysia because the laws are there. Yeah. But sadly that is not true. I can cite several cases where house buyers actually complained to the Ministry of Housing, hey, that this particular developer was not licensed previously, and it failed, and then they are redeveloping the land with a different company and still not licensed. Instead of taking action against those people, the Ministry of Housing basically just advised them, please come and license yourself. Instead of sending those people to jail, they said, please come and license yourself. These are the forms. Fill it up, pay 200,000, get yourself licensed. At the same time, the same piece of land, which has conned 300 people, are being used to con another set of 500 by so-called redevelopment. Yeah? And from our own analysis is, they are close to, in effect, a gross development value of 10 billion ringgit. This is on a conservative figure. Yeah? The actual number can be wrong. Let's look at the current laws and some project failures that has happened in Malaysia. Yeah. For those who like to get to know Mr. Bob Hickman, he's sitting right at the back there. Yeah. Poor chap, coming to Malaysia to retire in the Malaysia Second Home Program. Yeah. He's a British public servant, and he hasn't seen his home yet. He's still renting. Yeah? It sends a very wrong message internationally. I quote what he said: "We thought we can retire Malaysia peacefully. Thousands of foreigners are caught in the same predicament, and we were to run around by every government agencies for years. While solutions are presented, no agency will want to take lead and resolve the problem. It sends a wrong message internationally without the fairness of law and Malaysia. It is indirectly saying this is a lawless country when it comes to abandoned housing." Let's look on why the project failed. Firstly, the first box is encouraging laws. It's interesting why some people may think, why the word encouraging laws? Because we have laws in this country that encourage abandoned projects to take this. That's why I say it's encouraging laws. Questionable political willpower and rogue developers. I must say, I'm just focusing on the rogue developers. There are plenty of good developers outside there, which receives quite an ovation from many of the people. Right? So, but rogue developers have got their own characteristics, which I will dwell in the short. Let's look at Act 118, which is the Housing Development Act. First of all, it is an unequitable law. When you talk about Housing Development Act, you cannot have an equal law, because you are talking about a common man versus a corporation. A common man, not many of them are as educated as many of us in this room. Yet there are many of them have very low level of education and trust whatever the lawyer says and give on a piece of paper and says, no, this is standard, no problem, you can sign it. Yeah? So, you cannot have an equal law. An equal law means a law that is unfair to the common man. In many countries around the world, laws are not made equal. Laws are made equitable. It's important to understand the concept of equitability. Closer? Unequitable law basically do not protect public interest but support developers. Yeah? It gives room to rogue developers to cheat. People who want to cheat look for opportunities to cheat. People who want to cheat will look for opportunities to cheat. Like any students taking for exams, when there's an opportunity to copy, they will copy, because opportunity is presented to them. Similarly here, yeah? It provides, the current laws provides full protection to the developers. It provides no workable protection to the purchasers. It says the purchasers has rights. Oh, you can go to housing tribunal. Yeah? You can engage lawyers to sue the developer, but it's not workable. In many instances we have seen it's not workable because the ordinary man cannot fight a corporation. Provide purchasers with expensive legal recourse which is unlikely to be utilized by the masses. How many of us outside there can afford to engage a lawyer? Not many. In the end, you engage a lawyer, they are good lawyers and they are bad lawyers. In the end, you still spend money and lose your case, and you don't get your house, and you lose your money. And then you have housing tribunal, unenforceable housing tribunal decision. I took this matter with our Tan Sri AG personally, Tan Sri Kani Pataya. I questioned him. He said, and I told him, I said, look, in Malaysian context, the tribunal is beautiful. Every time a consumer goes to the tribunal, 99.9% the consumers win. Right? Housing tribunal, the consumer, the house buyer wins. But when it comes to enforce decision, the developer just laugh and walk away. They just laugh and walk away. In fact, they don't even pay the fines. Right? So I told Tan Sri Edi said, are you sure no people have been sent to jail? I said, no. He said, no, I don't agree with you. He said, let me call the housing guy from Ministry of Housing, we have a meeting. So he conducted a meeting. And in front of us, both of us, the head of housing tribunal told us, yes, nobody has been sent to jail, and we have a lot of cases we are trying to prosecute for those who did not comply with the tribunal decision. And we're still in the process of trial. And they get slapped with, they go to court and they get slapped with a small fine. You know. So, in fact, while under full protection of the law, encourage weak and opportunistic developers to set up companies. It's not difficult to set up companies in Malaysia. Anybody can set up companies. The concept now everyone can be a developer is on a trial basis. Yeah. It's very bad. You can be a developer easily and be registered in Ministry of Housing easily, and at the same time can con the people. There's a lot of some cases you see that these road developers use it as a site for money laundering. And we also have cases where developers are using it as a cash flow for their own private other activities. They got a 3 acres land, put a nice brochure, apply for license, approved, and apartments, 1,000 unit apartments, each sold for 150,000, collect 10%, 15,000, got 15 million, walk away. And then create a second one. Then separate development company, take the 15 million from this particular project and dump it to another project. And the cycle continues and he collects everywhere. Yeah. This is rampant, especially in China. And all these are going on for years under the full protection of the law. Something is seriously wrong with our law. Yeah. Quote from a prominent legal counsel. I had to see a lot of lawyers, some good ones, some not so good ones. Yeah. When the Housing Development Act mandated the use of standardized and lopsided SPA under Schedule G and H that favors the developer, it raises potential serious legal questions whether the government is liable party to the problem. Perhaps House buyers should seek a clear cut position in this. It means that the government says everybody must follow the standard SPA, sale and purchase agreement. If everybody has to follow the standard sale and purchase agreement, because the government says we have to follow, if something goes wrong, we can blame the government. We can sue the government. But unfortunately, nobody has tested this. We want to, but we don't have the money to engage about it. It's very expensive. So perhaps, we should get together and do something about it. It may be a point of academics. If you go to court, raise the issue in court, and get the outcome of the decision in court. But it is important from an academic point of view, and if we are lucky, we might just win. Yeah? And immediately the government has put forward money to revive all the projects. 360 projects throughout the country. Questionable willpower, political willpower. In Malaysia, the public impression, I must emphasize this word, the public impression that politicians and developers are very strong financial. If you go and talk to the people who are affected by abandoned housing, who has gone and seen the Ministry of Housing, and gone and see many agencies, they will tell you the frustration that they face in getting things done. And it is always protecting the development. Yeah. The political masters control and control the powers of working government servants behind the processes. This is a fact. Some may not like it, but having dealt with the government agencies like KPKT, they are very good officers inside them. But these people came out from the meeting room, go down for coffee with me and say, "Doc, Very difficult. Minister says cannot. Minister says this, minister says that. So I understand they are planning to get government servants. If they try to be a little bit gung-ho, what if they get cancelled out? And they don't want to rock the boat. Despite the problem faced by thousands since 1966, the minister has never exercised his powers in a preventive manner to revive the project. If you study the Housing Development Act, there are a long list of powers of the minister to protect house buyers. Since 1966, it has never been done except in one case in Putrajaya, which was actually also did not protect the house buyer. It was about removing the LED rights of the house buyer. It did not protect the buyer. And there are many sections of the law. You can go through. Have you ever heard of a case where developers have been charged and sent to prison by courts in Malaysia for purchasing a government house? Have you heard of a director of a company or a CEO being thrown out into prison? Right? If you ask Muzaffar, who is in the financial institution, people like me in the financial institution, we are so scared of the Financial Services Act because they make us accountable. I can go to prison. The Act says I can go to prison. The Act says Muzaffar can be fined 5 million. He can be bankrupt. Right? Yeah? That's how laws work differently in Bangladesh. Yeah? Has any developer been charged for misappropriation of house buyers' money because it is abandoned? How can a project fail when the bank has done its due diligence and says, hey, the banks know how to calculate money, They know how to do the calculation. The ordinary man don't, But the banks don't. The banks would have calculated and says, this project should be okay because they get money from the purchasers. There should be enough money to complete the project. But it did not complete because the money was not used within the project, it was used elsewhere. And yet, no action taken. Has any state government confiscated any land under the abandoned housing project, under abandoned projects using the National Land Code? To my knowledge, none, except recently in Selangor. And there was one case being challenged by Maybank, somewhere in Ijo. The Selangor government has used the National Land Code to remove the right to protect the house buyers. Let's look at the road developer. Should road developers be blamed for taking advantage? If you talk about people who got no morals, who are into the business of cheating people, they are God's money. They are no other God. And professionalism is not their primary objective. They are out there with the primary objective to cheat people. So, who is responsible then? To us, as the victims of abandoned house, I would say the government. Because it creates the right legal platform for them to cheat. And yet do nothing about it. Let's look at some solutions that we have. Maybe a little bit different from what has been talked about for the last couple of years. This is an example of a project in Casa Gembira. Developer is politically connected. You can see the picture of the politician on the banner. Hundreds of police reports made, no action taken. It's CBT, no action taken. Former Menteri Besar says what to do is luck. I was also a victim of abandonment. He admitted it publicly, and he's the Menteri Besar. So what do you expect? So we need to resolve the existing problems and where the new ones are. This is like a discussion, right? It's a conversation. We need to find ways to resolve where we are today and prevent it from happening again. Clearly, to resolve, we need a strong political willpower. To prevent, we need to change the way we look at the problem. housing projects are restricted. From a government perspective, which I completely agree with them, the government says that, look, it is not our problem, it's a private party problem, and we should be coming up with money to have a private party. You know? That's the government thinking. But despite that, I think 2012, the government provided 100 million, which was used to revive, I think, about 20 to 30 abandoned low-cost house. They only focus on the low-cost house. Yeah? I think year before that, also the government gave 100 million as well. It's a small amount compared to the total size of the problem, which is coming to about 10 million. Yeah? So, I would say it's a good effort of the government. Yeah? Needs to move forward more. We need to convince the government to do more than just giving small amount of money. We need to pressure the shareholders and directors of the finance to finance the competition. Reality is, since government cannot give money, who must finish it? It must be the people who started the project. So how do you go after them? I think sometimes government has to behave like gangsters. Whether you like it or not, I use the word gangster. We have to. You know, if you see the movie, Mafia movie on TV, you know, right? See how they behave. When they send people to the door, yeah, to get things done. And the government, you know, the government has got enough resources within its means to pressure the development. When I was in the military, I quote my former boss, colleague of mine as well, General Goh, whose sister was actually was a businesswoman somewhere in KL. So gangsters were coming asking for protection money. You know? So he came down to the shop one day with his uniform, one-star general and all that. And he met with the gangsters and he told the gangsters, look, we are the army, the biggest gangsters, we don't want to play a fool with us. And the gangsters walk away. They never do that. You know? So that's what happened. And General Goh today is the Vice President of the House Buyer Association. Yeah? But as I said, no, we have all the rules within us. One time, during a meeting with the house buyer, which was attended by the developer lawyer sent me a letter, wanted to sue me for whatever I said. And I had to present that letter to all the house buyers. This is in England. And the lawyer came down to record whatever I said. He came down and sat down in the same forum. And I told the audience, I said, look, the lawyer can give me a letter to sue me, but the lawyer doesn't realize, out of 1,000 house buyers, we have people working in the immigration department, small clerks, which can make passport problems. You want to go out at KLIA, suddenly you cannot go out. We have people who work in income tax department who can come and do audit on this legal firm who try to sue me. You know, and I think we have friends in all this among the house buyers who can do this. And everybody said yes, we do. Immediately the lawyer got up and went out. He waited for me outside. He came to see me. He apologized. He said, I'm sorry, I'm just doing my job because the developer did that. I said, don't play fool, I take it seriously. And then, what the lawyer did, the lawyer dissociated himself with the developer. You know? Because we have the power. But we are not using it. Similarly, the government has the power. Yeah? We have the Inland Revenue Board. We have the insolvency. Why isn't the Inland Revenue Board, why isn't the government forming a committee that goes after this particular road developers and find out their background, how much money they have in the bank, whether they pay taxes properly and all that. Make their life miserable until they complete the house. That's the way to do it. Form a formal committee. But the government does not have any formal committee. To resolve, we need a good law. I put this in red, but there's a favorite country that's only in the country. I don't mention his name. But I think if the government is serious, the government of the day is serious, we need to send a developer to jail. We need to send a strong message. The moment we can send one country to a prison for causing abandoned house, you think the small fry dare to do it? They will not do it. Instead, the government gives him more business. Solution: prevention is better than cure. As a doctor, I always promote that. Now, how do we prevent abandoned house? A lot of ideas have been focused on the construction itself. We should not be managing construction. We should not be managing construction because the issue is finance. The issue is money. What needs to be managed is money. So we should focus on managing developers' solvency, capital adequacy, capabilities, rather than managing building progress. Why is it the Ministry of Housing is more interested to see whether it's 10%, 20%, 30%, whether it's less than this and that? Well, you can actually focus on the money. If the money is there, you control the money, you can complete the project. You can protect house buyers. And what I am saying here, it is not new, it's not something rocket science. If you ask Mustafa, he fully understands what I say. People in the banking sectors understand what I say. Because I'm part of that. And I'm copying this idea from the sector I come from. It's not my brain idea. I'm not that smart. Let me ask you something today. Mustafa pointed out earlier that the moment that he pays the first deposit, he worries whether the house will be completed, right? I think all of us face the same predicament. We put our 10% hard-earned saving, especially for the first house, and then we worry for the next 36 months. And every week we go to the developer, to the site, and try to peek and see where is my house, whether it's been ready or not, because we bought a piece of drawing on a brochure. But do you have the problem of keeping money in the bank? You work and you tell your employer, hey, don't give me cash, you put money into my account directly. You trusted the bank, right? You go and buy insurance or takaful. You buy, what do you buy when you buy insurance or buy takaful cover? You buy a promise, nothing more than that. You buy a piece of promise, what the insurance agent give you? A piece of paper is a promise. No lawyer support. No need to engage lawyer, pay $5,000 to sign, nothing. And you trust it. You trust it. What is the importance here? It's trust. Bank of Dana Malaysia has put in place a system where people can trust. People have no worries. And that's why we should follow the same. Why it's so difficult? Why is it so difficult it cannot be done? What I notice is that, based on my experience dealing with people in Bangladesh, they have the highest integrity when it comes to protection of public interest. They put public interest first compared to us. The banks, the insurance company, retail company, reinsurance company or secondary. People first. That's Bangladesh. That's why they come out even stronger. This year they passed a new law. They call it Financial Services Act 2013, which is even more stringent. Makes us having sleepless night. I lost a lot of hair because of that. Having to comply with development, it does not give the public a peace of mind. Whereas what you need is a peace of mind. So learn from what the people of the government must do is look at how Bank Negara does things. Let's look at some of the key points in Financial Services Act. If SAR makes principal officers and controlling shareholders and directors accountable and cannot hide behind the veil of corporation or corporate companies act, it means, as I mentioned, Muzaffar can go to jail, I can also go to jail. For what my employees does. For what my employees does, and it has happened. It has happened. Bank Negara comes to the insurance company, give a letter and told the insurance company CEO, please leave, don't take anything except your pen. Even your briefcase you leave behind you. It has happened in Malaysia. They make it serious. Offer a clear deterrent punishment which forces players to toe the line. 5 million, right? The punishment is 5 million for CEOs. Risk planning and risk aversion by monitoring solvency and capital adequacy ratio of the player. This is what Bank Negara does. Bank Negara doesn't come to the bank and see how you do your daily business. It focuses on key indicators which is able for them to have a good grasp of the situation. And not only to have a good grasp, they have a good understanding when to intervene, early intervention. And swift action is taken by the bank, central bank, when people do not comply. Let's look at our proposal. Using the capital adequacy ratio, companies that uses project development companies must maintain the capital adequacy ratio according to the project GDP, the amount of money collected from the buyers, total assets and liabilities of the PDC, and the amount of money uncollected from the buyers. There must be a formula. If there is, you see, a lot of companies, what they do is, they are major corporations, right? And below them, they create a $2 shell company called project development company. Under the company corporations, profit can be repatriated back to the parent, but liability stays at the subsidiary. So how do we manage this? So we want to make sure that the subsidiary is safe. So it must have certain amount of capital. It cannot be $2. And how do we do this? We have to tie this up together with the size of the project, the amount of sales going to make, the amount of money that is going to come in, the total asset of that, not the parent company, the project development company, unencumbered assets. If we can develop certain parameters, I think it will be safe. This will force companies to use parent company rather than hide behind project development companies. A lot of housing project failed. The project development company failed, but the parent company not affected. Some of them also listed companies. Regulators must have a firm system of monitoring the company financial position using the solvency and company capital adequacy ratio monitoring tools. If the Ministry of Housing people don't understand this, I'll be more than happy to come and give 2 hours lecture on this, or I suggest going to talk about it. Make the two directors and owner principals accountable by defining the various offences and punitive actions clearly. If you go into the Financial Services Act, there's one schedule at the back. It clearly states, failure to disclose amount, fine, X amount. Failure to do this, X amount. No need to go to court already. Tan Sri Zeti beside the letter. Pam, you are dead. That's why we bankers and insurance companies are very strict in what we do. We are very scared. That's why I lose a lot of hair. Companies cannot realize profits if project is not completed. Why? Because the company company did not use their money to complete the project. They did not use their money to build the house. They built our money. So whatever money, whatever profit they should realize only after the project is completed. Yeah. Dispute resolutions. This is another big issue. A lot of times, house buyers have dispute with the developers. Where does it go? Tribunals. Housing tribunal. Housing tribunal to give a decision favoring house buyers. Does the developers pay? No. Then the housing tribunal issue a notice. The housing regulator, housing controller issue a fine. 5,000 ringgit. That's it. End of story. What we have today is not dispute resolutions. What we have today is not dispute resolution. We need a one-stop dispute resolution. You see, people may not agree with me, but if it is agreed between two parties, if let's say Muzaffar and myself agrees that if we have problem, we will go to Prof to settle. Whatever Prof says is final. If both parties agree, it should be okay, right? But no, even if you look under the act, the tribunal decisions are not final. The developer has the right to go to court. The developer just engage a lawyer, file $5,000 injunction in court, and that's it. Matter will stuck there for years. Yeah. Victims' proposal are not rocket science. It is not rocket science because it has been done. It has been practiced by Bank Negara since Merdeka. Malaysian financial institution is one of the resilient institutions. Yeah. Malaysian financial institution is one of the institutions in the world that is respected and people have faith and trust. So much faith that you leave all your money in the banks and not under your pillow. You trust the banks more than your pillow. You know? Why? Because of Bank Negara. Similarly, Ministry of Housing can adopt these laws. Make these changes. A new set of laws should also cover qualities among house buyers. Do we need to change the law to consider our proposal? No, maybe not. And I think no. I'm not a lawyer, but from what I talk to so many lawyers, they say, no, we don't need to change the law. It's very simple. Section 24 of the Housing Development Act, power of the minister to make regulations. There's a standard line in every government act. So the government can make regulations. Minister can just make regulations. If the minister's people are here, perhaps they can go back and tell the minister today, hey, why don't we do this? Within a couple of months, problem can be solved. Other points to consider. This is back to the banking institution. Exit clauses with financial institution and project goes into abandonment. Like what Prof has illustrated. Because of the road developers, the house buyers end up going to bankruptcy and they lost a job. Family economy is affected. I think there is a need to develop an exit clause for house buyers when a project goes into abandonment. There must be a clause. Banks must share the risk of project development as they are their own financial and bridging finances. As I mentioned, developers like to do when they advertise their brochures, their project. They write there, end financier as Bank A, B, C, D, and they put their logos on it. Giving the impression that all the big banks think this project is okay, so buyers think okay, so we buy it. But that's not the case. In conclusion, as I mentioned, the government, through the Office of Jabatan Perumahan Negara, has been involved in reviving some projects. From our observation, most of the time, Jabatan Perumahan Negara plays a middleman role between the house buyers and the developers. It is quite frustrating actually because we find that the Jakarta Pemandu people do not want to use their powers. Yeah. They don't want to use the act to the fullest. As I mentioned, they are restricted by the ministers. If you look at the Housing Development Act, the power of the minister is so huge inside there that housing controller also has very restricted say. Financial assistance are limited, funds only used to cover low costs. Revival process takes too long. And when you look into any abandoned project, if you go in, send an expert to study the problem, understand the issues, yeah, you can see that they can tell you it can be resolved in 2 years from the day you do this 1, 2, 3, 4. But in actual fact, it's longer than that. Victim simulation views there are inherent weakness in the Housing Development Act 1966, Amendment 2007, and also the Housing Development Act 2012, which has not been presented yet, which was intentional in nature. Current measures are inadequate. Government needs to show greater commitment to protecting people's interests. We need to protect Malaysia in the eyes of international house buyers. People are laughing at us. People coming to this country to make this a second home are laughing at us. Thousands of people are affected. Victims' proposal promote the development of healthy companies and protect house buyers. Thank you. Any easy questions?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'd like to just ask your opinion on the situation. If you look at other countries, for example in Australia, they don't seem to have this problem of abandonment because of the fact that developers are you can book a house, but you only start in after the period of development. So the developers are required to have the financing. So the problems of abandonment will not happen, and the home buyers are actually protected. So you can pay a certain amount for down payment, but it will be kept and you won't lose anything. Let's say the project is abandoned, you won't lose anything. So I think we should look at other countries as well to get an idea of how to prevent future problems. Okay, one more thing, you seem to have praised and I agree with you because they take a very strict approach on disobedience or whatever. What do you think they can do in how the abandonment situations? Thank you.
Okay, there's two parts of the question. The first one is the sentence you to that. Okay. Yeah, you can check. It's true. In Australia, it did not happen because I think the regulatory model is different. Yeah. In Malaysia, developers are saying that money is expensive, so by doing this, taking money from house buyers and rebuild the money using the house buyers' money, essentially can make the houses cheaper. Actually, now you see houses are not very cheap nowadays. So I think what you say is probably right. I fully support such an idea if the government chose to do it in that manner. Follow the Australian model. After all, the houses are no longer cheap, and this idea of using people's money to build cheap houses is no longer acceptable. Yeah, that's number one. What Bengala can do? Unfortunately, the way I see it, other than educating Ministry of Housing, on ways to create inter-ministry kind of engagement, must appreciate that Bank Negara purview is restricted to certain categories of the sectors, which are financial institution and like financial institution. So I don't think they can go after the government. But on the victims itself, I think Bank Negara through its link, BNN link, and also through AKPK, can convince the banks to be a little bit kinder to the people who have been affected by the abandonment. I think they can. They have that persuasive power, and I've seen it in that.
cases that ever since the issue of abandoned house projects due to a licensed housing project, PDRM has never conducted a detailed study until this year. PPIM organized a massive police report and convinced people in high up in the police force to organize a special task force to investigate 4 or 5 housing projects and 6 banks. I know PDRM has set up a very detailed investigation, 30 officers, and the entire papers, two truckloads of papers, and mentioned papers have been sent to AG Chambers. Now it's been 6 months, no news. Now, after speaking and studying cases involving Bupati Meghalaya, there are issues of fraud. That clearly bank officers have failed in their professional duty by BAFIA section, in the second schedule, section 3B1, whereby bank officers cannot do anything that will harm the interests of the general public. Now, when you make payment based on architect certificates that are just photocopies and you don't cite the original, and then these certificates are known to be forged. Now, this kind of issues, complaints have been made to Bank Negara since 2007. Complaints asking Bank Negara to investigate. PPIM organized 100 complaints to Bank Negara to investigate bank officers. You know what happened when these letters go to Bank Negara? They go to link department, and after link department, they go to the respective banks and asking the banks to explain. We don't ask that. We say by the powers of Bank Negara, investigate. But so far, even in the meeting PPIM had with Bank Negara, it is very obvious that Bank Negara did not start investigating. So I disagree with you that so far, Bank Negara have been consumer friendly as far as Bupati Meghalaya is concerned. No sir, they have not been. Based on PPIM personal experience and based on the case law, based on the cases that have been so far happened, based on letters from 2007, chunks and chunks of letters, no sir. I would like to pick up the issue of how we've been trying to solve this problem. Now, let's assume that you've got one housing project, 100 houses. In that 100 houses, you've got one developer who ran away. Say the house is 80% ready. Now, in that housing project, you've got 7 banks. Right? You've got 7 banks. So far, what's happening is that every single bank puts in their position and puts in their rights, and it goes on, year in, year out. So far, I don't see, PPIM does not see, the associations of banks sitting down, the bank that are sitting down, calling all the banks, come on guys, let's sit down and let's try and find a composite solution to this problem. If a composite solution is found, can be found, because what's happening now, every single bank is sitting down and protecting their individual position, not trying to find a solution and the interest of the general public. Thank you.
So, I'm more on the insurance side. But I tend to disagree with you on one or two statements. One, I would like to highlight that I said Bank Negara gives people peace of mind when doing banking. Yeah. So you have that peace of mind, the regulations are there to protect people's interests. Yeah. I did not touch on abandoned housing. Right. Secondly is the issues that need to be brought forward to Bank Negara is not about the abandonment. It should be about the financial. If it is a financial related issue, yes, Bank Negara has purview. If there is risk management in financial disbursement, yes, Bank Negara has the rights to intervene. Now, I have, on my own personal association capacity, we have actually referred several cases to the KPK and to PNW, to Srimanana. And we have cases which is being resolved. Yeah? Maybe there are cases that's not being resolved. Yeah? I'm sure there are, because there are thousands of cases, I'm sure there are cases that's not being resolved. The issue is we need to understand why. Yeah? Sometimes the problems appear to be far more complicated than what it appears on the surface. You need to study them deeper when it comes to individual cases. Yeah? With regards to computer-generated certificate of fitness, I think you're referring to that, right? No, the certificate of fitness that the architect signed.
Progress payment.
No, this is progress payment. This is progress payment where the developers send the architect certificate to the banks. And because it's on the basis of this architect certificate, the banks make payment. What happened is that when this developer sends this architect certificate, they are forged certificate. What they do is that they photocopy, they change the name of the person, they change the name of the lot, and just photocopy and keep sending to the bank. So bank officers did not cite the original, just based on photocopy and they pay. Project never existed, work never done. Now,
That's a clear fraud.
yeah, it's a clear fraud. So what we've done is that we've sent this complaint to Bank Negara. We said, Bank Negara, you've got to investigate because this is fraud, and bank officers did not do their professional duty. Because if you talk about financial management, as a financial manager, I mean, even letters of credit, papers, bank officers are supposed to do necessary due diligence. But in this instance, they don't even cite the original and pay. So after paying, the buyer will hang.
Perhaps Bank Negara people here can take a cue from Ajay and see what is the next best thing that can be done. Any other questions? Don't have. Thank you very much for the